You've been conditioned to chase force and dominate. But the enlightened ones understood differently. Surrender shapes destiny. This guide to cosmic yielding reveals that the instant you relinquish is when existence starts to surge. Release and observe wonders emerge. Surrender shapes destiny. Introduction. Deep within the quiet of your essence resides an overlooked truth, pure, timeless, and concealed under the clamor of pursuit. It is the holy craft of yielding the timeless lock that opens the endless riches of the invisible domain. The seers of antiquity murmured of a celestial contradiction. What you seize evades you, but what you free comes back renewed. This is the principle not of strain, but of harmony. The path of existence embedded in the structure of being from the dawn. You were instructed to create through constant action to impose your intent on reality. However, the genuine cosmic rules, quiet and supreme, disclose themselves solely when you halt your resistance and enter the divine stream of yielding. Yielding is not frailty. It is the supreme directive of your inner self. The courageous step of entrusting your journey to the boundless wisdom that directs everything. The cosmos comprehends the route even when your thoughts do not. Upon release, you rouse to what the wise termed celestial permission. You turn into the conduit, not the builder, the pathway, not the director. And in this holy condition, existence streams toward you unsolicited, seamless, extraordinary. This reality has been obscured under the burden of contemporary strain and distraction, yet it persists. And now it summons you to unteach, to ease, to believe. For in the craft of yielding you uncover the most timeless mystery of all. Destiny bends to the one who releases. But before we proceed, kindly press the like button and share from which part of the globe you're tuning in today. It's intriguing to discover who connects with us worldwide. Part 1. Rousing to the Strength of Yielding. Music. Chapter 1. The Mirage of Dominance. In a coastal town bordered by endless waves, Marina navigated her boat with unyielding resolve. Daily she wrestled the sea's patterns, building reinforced hulls and employing mechanical aids to compel her vessel through storms off-season. She assessed, planned, and governed every factor: the currents, the wind speeds, the navigation charts. Yet despite her tireless labors, her journeys stayed fraught with peril. Her catches meager and elusive. One dawn, a seasoned mariner arrived at her dock. His gaze carried the insight of innumerable voyages as he observed Marina's weary endeavors. "Dear one," he murmured gently, "you drain yourself opposing the very power that seeks to aid you." He led her to a serene bay where tides moved vessels naturally in their season. The ocean discerns when to surge, when to calm, when to provide. Your dominance is a deception that merely isolates you from this insight. This principle stretches well past seas. It permeates all facets of your being. Your intellect, shaped by decades of cultural conditioning, assumes it must orchestrate each instant, each result, each realization. This mirage of dominance forms the precise obstacle, blocking you from the plenty that lingers. The cosmos functions via impeccable celestial timing. Yet you oppose its insight, striving to enforce your finite comprehension on the eternal. Just as a wave cannot be coerced to crest prematurely, your aspirations cannot materialize via pure determination. The cosmos harbors a vaster dream for your path than your intellect could envision. When you loosen your hold on the manner and timing, you permit this superior wisdom to operate via you. Reflect on Lucas, the tide watcher who devoted years combating the waves, convinced his might could alter the ocean's course. Each expedition fatigued him as he battled the water's innate movement. Until one storm tossed from his craft, he uncovered something astonishing. When he yielded to the waves, they bore him securely to land with simplicity. This instant reshaped his perception. He mastered reading the ocean's cadence, collaborating with its surge instead of against it. His voyages grew seamless, and he ventured farther than strife ever allowed. Your route to realization adheres to the identical rule. The cosmos resembles this ocean, transporting you toward your utmost benefit. Your opposition, your urge to dominate, merely generates disturbance in this innate surge. To commence freeing dominance, conduct the liberation ceremony. Grab a sheet of parchment and inscribe all you endeavor to govern results, individuals, schedules, approaches. As you ignite this parchment, utter these phrases with resolve. I yield this to the cosmos, aware that what reappears will surpass what I free. Chapter 2. The Holy Craft of Releasing. In the concealed archives of a lost metropolis resided a hoarder named Sophia. Her expansive rooms brimmed with valuable relics, ornate chests, illuminated tomes, and glassy containers that captured the glow. Each acquisition vowed completion. Yet with every fresh inclusion, her spirit sank heavier. The barriers of her dwelling slowly turned into the confines of her enclosure, each valued object a segment in the shackle that restrained her. When you clutch firmly to what you deem will deliver joy, you erect an energetic wall that blocks superior graces from approaching. This cosmic reality functions with exact precision. The room you preserve for accepting directly links to your ability for summoning plenty. Your tightened hands cannot accept the cosmos's offerings. The rule of yielding works via this celestial contradiction. Only in freeing your bond to particular results do you form the energetic emptiness essential for realization. This freeing is not deprivation, but metamorphosis. A universal alchemy that converts vacant room into boundless promise. Sophia unearthed this reality one gusty dusk when, burdened by the load of her holdings, she flung open every portal in her quarters. As the breeze rushed in, sweeping her valuables into the shadows, she sensed not deprivation, but emancipation. In that instant of utter yielding, she grasped that her authentic riches resided not in what she owned, but in her liberty to accept. This insight resounds in the narrative of Elias, a navigator whose honor rested in his assemblage of carefully sketched charts. Adrift in thick mist, he depended on these diagrams to steer him safely. Yet each computation misguided him further. Only when the haze drenched his charts to worthlessness did he gaze upward and spot the constellations appearing, nature's precise guidance vastly superior to his meticulous schemes. To tap this timeless insight in your existence, engage in the open palms contemplation. Settle in utter tranquility, positioning your palms upward on your thighs. With each outbreath free one element, you've been gripping a scheme, an anticipation, a wished result. Sense the liberty in your open palms. With each in-breath, envision your palms as holy receptacles prepared to accept the cosmos's plenty. Sustain this respiration pattern for 7 minutes, permitting yourself to encounter the deep serenity that accompanies utter yielding. This engagement realigns your vitality with the innate surge of cosmic plenty. Your open palms symbolize not deprivation, but preparedness, a cue to the cosmos that you are ready to accept offerings vastly superior to those you've freed. Chapter 3. The Celestial Contradiction. In the records of vanished empires dwelled a ruler named Isabella, who governed her territory with a steel hold. Each sunrise she mounted her spire, examining every aspect of her land via a silver lens. No breeze stirred, no trader bartered, no elder counseled without her awareness and approval. Yet with each cycle her empire started to slip from her clasp like grains. The more fervently she aimed to sustain dominance, the more her people withdrew, until one dawn she stood solitary in a vacant fortress. Within the eternal insight of the cosmos lies a holy reality that has altered explorers through eras. To acquire everything, you must first free everything. This celestial contradiction functions as a universal rule, yet its deep simplicity evades those who adhere to the mirage of dominance. The cosmos answers not to your seizure, but to your readiness to extend your hands and believe. When you yield wholly to the superior insight that steers all, you harmonize with the precise power that forms realms. This harmony cannot be attained via strain or intent, but solely via the utter release of both. In this release, you uncover that what you pursued was pursuing you eternally. This reality echoes in the account of Theo, a painter who forfeited his hearing in maturity. For years he chased every remedy, every cure, every vow of restored sound. His pursuit devoured him until one twilight, drained by hunting, he merely reclined by his canvas and painted. As his brush glided across the surface, something remarkable transpired. He started to hear colors, as melodies, waves of harmony resonating in his spirit. In that instant of pure yielding to his craft, his inner hearing awakened, unveiling a realm more exquisite than audible sound ever displayed. Through these timeless lessons, you will comprehend that realization functions via contradiction. What you chase withdraws, what you free reappears. The cosmos responds not to your longings, but to your condition of existence. When you halt the perpetual pursuit and dwell in the serene assurance that all unfolds impeccably, you establish the precise circumstances that permit your longings to materialize. The contradiction diary engagement. Seize a fresh diary and note your profoundest aspirations, those visions that awaken your essence. Under each etch, these phrases: I wholly free my bond to this result, aware that in yielding it reappears to me in its impeccable shape. Let each inscribed yielding be a holy gesture of belief in the cosmos's impeccable design. Chapter 4. The Perceptive Portal. In the vast stretch of azure skies, Adrian soared onward, his instruments and blueprints gripped in unsteady grasp. Though an inner murmur hinted of another course, he adhered to his meticulously mapped trajectory, rejecting the soft prompts of perception as sheer nonsense. Weeks elapsed, fuel diminished, and still he advanced, adhering to the rational path that guided ever deeper into isolation. Only when his final reserve evaporated into the void did he ultimately loosen his hold on assurance and descend to his knees in yielding. In that instant of utter release, a delicate awareness surfaced within his core. Without blueprints or logic to steer him, he veered south against all estimations and flew. As the horizon glowed, a haven materialized like a vision, realized verdant lands and thriving communities untouched by any cartographer's mark. The cosmos communicates not via the babbling intellect, but via the hushed tone of internal awareness. This holy perception surfaces only in the realm of yielding. When you free your clasp on reason and dominance, yet most persist in muting this celestial direction, opting instead to pursue the restricted blueprints of the logical intellect. Authentic perception varies immensely from the tone of dread posing as internal insight. Dread utters impressing notes requiring instant response and depicting scenes of scarcity. Celestial perception whispers with tender assurance, needing no validation or evidence. In yielding, you master distinguishing these tones, identifying the tranquil awareness that rises from the essence's profundities. This reality resounds in the narrative of Clara, a trader famed for her computed trade paths and meticulous records. Each venture adhered to routes verified lucrative by eras of merchants preceding her. Yet one sunrise, as she readied her standard convoy, an unaccountable impulse surfaced to journey east into uncharted realms. All reason contended against this madness, but for the first time Clara yielded to this hushed awareness. Her voyage unveiled a concealed cove teeming with exotic spices and rare gems, riches exceeding any her precise computations ever produced. For the perceptive hearing engagement, position yourself in utter tranquility with a solitary inquiry scripted before you. Free all preconceived responses, all rational resolutions. Vacate your intellect wholly until it resembles a transparent expanse undisturbed by the waves of cognition. Permit the genuine response to surface, not from deduction, but from the depths of yielding. Believe that in this emptiness of cerebral motion, celestial insight will arise with pristine lucidity. Chapter 5. Opposition. In a canyon sculpted by primordial winds rose a colossal barrier where Leonard had invested eras upholding its inflexible boundaries. Each day he scrutinized the fortifications, bolstering any frailty, proud of his capacity to restrain the potent gale. Until one twilight, a wise one materialized at his post, his gaze mirroring insight born through millennia. "You contend against the wind's essence," he noted softly. "Yet its strength resides not in restraint, but in permitting its passage." He escorted him to a site upwind where the gale flowed unhindered, powering myriad sails that yielded more vitality than his barrier ever might. In that instant, Leonard comprehended his opposition had forged the exact impediment restricting the gale's authentic potential. Within you exists a comparable design of opposition constructing walls against the innate surge of plenty. These impediments, erected from apprehension and uncertainty, become the precise hurdles obstructing your aspirations from materializing. You oppose what exists, battling current situations, oblivious that this opposition forms an energetic obstruction that affluence cannot breach. 3 chief modes of opposition hinder your realization: rejection, evaluation, and compelling. In rejection, you deny your current actuality, forming a division that blocks genuine metamorphosis. Via evaluation, you energetically thrust against what exists, fortifying its existence in your path. By compelling, you strive to alter situations, which merely breeds greater opposition to innate surge. The cosmos functions via embrace, not opposition. When you yield to what exists, you harmonize with the universal current that bears endless potentials. Your embrace becomes the base upon which fresh situations can construct. This reality clarified for Sophia, whose shores lay barren under ceaseless drought. For seasons she contended against the aridity, striving to compel her usual yields to flourish, depleting her assets and vitality in vain opposition. Only when Sophia ultimately embraced the barren cycle did her route to plenty surface. Instead of battling the elements, she yielded to them, sowing resilient strains that prospered in dry climes. Her embrace of what existed forged the exact circumstances for unforeseen affluence to bloom. Her shores produced unique harvests that fetched values far surpassing her customary yield. Now you are welcome to engage in the opposition liberation. Pause to recognize 3 situations you presently oppose. For each fashion, a yielding declaration. I now yield my opposition to this situation, embracing it wholly as component of the impeccable unfolding of my path. Sense the energetic alteration as you free each impediment, permitting the innate surge of plenty to traverse your existence unblocked. Chapter 6. The Alchemy of Embrace. In a softly illuminated sanctuary brimming with timeless scrolls and enigmatic devices, Elias leaned over his station, his limbs quivering with weariness. For 3 decades he had compelled, altered, and contended to convert base ore into radiance. His trials escalated in intricacy, each setback propelling him to exert more intensity, more fervor, more compulsion. Yet the ore stayed obstinately unaltered. One midnight, as starlight seeped through aged panes, he slumped in hopelessness beside his station. In that instant of yielding, he genuinely perceived the ore before him for the initial occasion. Its muted facade bore a splendor he'd never discerned, its mass a nobility he'd disregarded. As he embraced the material's authentic essence, something remarkable happened. The ore commenced to gleam with an internal radiance. This reality extends past material alchemy into the domain of ethereal realization. When you oppose what exists, you generate an energetic abrasion that obstructs metamorphosis. Your denial of current situations, beings, or emotions produces a shield of negativity that repels the precise alteration you pursue. The cosmos functions via embrace, not denial. When you fully welcome what exists, you activate the universal rules of metamorphosis. This is not an active submission to undesired situations, but rather a potent harmony with the transformative powers that rule actuality. Just as air must first accept its present shape before it can become vapor or frost, your current actuality must be fully recognized before it can alter. Isabella uncovered this reality while traversing perilous forest trails in twilight. For hours she battled against a dense fog, denouncing the mist and shadows that hindered her path. Her opposition merely fatigued her further, until she could advance no more. In that instant of utter depletion, she yielded to the fog's existence. As her opposition dissolved, she started to observe how the mist, rather than her foe, was actually forming guiding veils. The very obscurity she had contended against was shaping a route to a concealed glade where she found refuge and clarity. Now, via the alchemist's welcome, you too can rouse this transformative strength. Locate a serene realm and pinpoint something you've been denying, a situation, being, or emotion that you've battled. Position your hands over your core. Sense its steady pulse and utter these phrases with complete attendance. I fully welcome this situation, being, emotion, precisely as it exists, aware that in this embrace the kernels of its impeccable metamorphosis are sown. Chapter 7. Belief. In the veiled highlands of a primordial terrain, Elena positioned at her forge, her sightless gaze directed inward as her digits glided across the metals. Though visionless from origin, She forged artifacts of such stunning elegance that voyagers from remote realms journeyed to behold her creations. While others perceived only singular components, Elena discerned the full design in her spirit's vision, believing in a sight that surpassed material perception. Via yielding to her sightlessness, Elena accessed a profounder vision, one that disclosed designs unseen to common sight. Her belief in the invisible permitted her craft to capture the very core of formation. Those who arrived seeking mere skill uncovered instead a proof to the strength of steadfast belief. This reality illuminates the vital nature of belief in realization. Belief is not simple hoping or desiring. It is ethereal vision that senses fulfillment before material proof surfaces. When you yield to this profounder awareness, you forge an unshakable link with the unseen powers that mold actuality. Your belief becomes the span across which your aspirations travel from the domain of promise into tangible shape. In the domain of realization, belief functions as an ethereal rule rather than a sentimental condition. It demands you to know with utter certainty that what you cannot yet perceive in the material realm already dwells in the ethereal domain. This awareness forges the oscillatory frequency that permits realization to happen. Marcus, the beacon guardian, embodied this reality during the immense tempest that challenged all essences. For 7 cycles of light and shadow obscurity engulfed his structure. The gale raged with such intensity that no craft could conceivably traverse the depths. Yet Marcus upheld his illumination with unswerving commitment, aware in the profundities of his existence that his signal served a grander intent than his restricted view could grasp. On the 8th twilight, when the gale ultimately cleared, Marcus uncovered that his belief had directed an entire armada to security. The commanders disclosed that in their bleakest hour, when all appeared forfeited, his illumination had been their singular anchor in the turmoil. His steadfast belief had materialized as deliverance for multitudes of essences. The practice of the belief stronghold now welcomes you to forge your own unswerving affirmation. Seize a fragment of scroll and inscribe your profoundest aspiration in the current tense as if it has already materialized. Let your phrases bear the utter awareness that what you affirm already dwells in the ethereal domain, merely awaiting its material manifestation. Recite this affirmation upon rousing and before repose, permitting no opposing proof to rattle your ethereal vision. In this engagement, you become the beacon guardian, upholding your belief irrespective of the gales that surge around you. Chapter 8. The Holy Interval. In the corridors of the timeless realm of Elandor, where insight was prized over wealth, resided Miriam, esteemed counselor to Sovereign Lyora. The sovereign, though cherished by her subjects, was noted for her rapid and occasionally impulsive decrees that could tremor the very pillars of the domain. One harvest dawn, as conflict horns resounded from adjacent territories, the sovereign ready to initiate an instant response, yet Miriam advanced, placing a lone azure gem upon her strategy board. "My sovereign," she uttered softly, "before you respond, I request only that you grasp this gem and inhale thrice." In that concise interval, knowledge arrived. Disclosing the horns were not of conflict, but of jubilation. Via this elementary gesture, Miriam introduced the holy practice of the interval to the realm. Soon, every pivotal decree commenced with this ritual of tranquility, reshaping Elandor into a domain of unparalleled affluence and harmony. The strength of the interval surpasses simple endurance. It is the holy realm where universal insight surges unblocked by mortal pursuit. When you forge conscious spaces between urge and response, you permit the eternal wisdom of the cosmos to operate via you. Most realizations falter not from absence of response, but from excessive response undertaken too hastily. In these instants of holy tranquility, the cosmos unveils roots invisible to the hastening intellect. Your yielding to these realms of non-response forges an attractive field that inherently draws your aspirations toward you. This is the overlooked craft of permission, where realization happens not via perpetual response, but via tactical tranquility. Gabriel, the fabled marksman, uncovered this reality on the loftiest summits of the enigmatic ranges. For eras he trained ceaselessly, yet could never strike the most demanding marks. One sunrise, in an instant of utter yielding, He discerned the delicate interval between his pulses. In that eternal realm, impeccable precision surfaced seamlessly. The projectile reaches its target not via my response, he later instructed, but via the realm I forge for cosmic powers to direct it. Your realizations operate by the same rule. Their strength resides not in continual response, but in the holy realms you forge via conscious yielding. The strength interval engagement summons you to welcome this reality. Thrice each cycle disrupt your instinctive response to dwell in utter tranquility for 7 minutes. Permit the cosmos to operate via you rather than you operating against it. In these spaces between response, the kernels of realization root and thrive in manners your occupied intellect could never arrange. Chapter 9. Freeing Bond to Results. In a hamlet nestled amid timeless peaks existed an artisan named Beatrice, whose hands had shaped marvels that attracted beholders from far realms. Yet her lifelong vision, her opus magnum, stayed eternally unfinished. For decades she toiled over elaborate designs and exact dimensions, persuaded that only via impeccable dominance could she forge her masterpiece. One turbulent midnight thunder assaulted her atelier. As flames devoured her carefully constructed designs, Beatrice observed in powerless yielding. But in that instant of total release, something remarkable roused within her. Liberated from the bonds of her own inflexible dream, her hands commenced to shift with an insight beyond cognition. What surfaced was more splendid than anything her intellect could have imagined. When you seize firmly to particular dreams of how your aspirations must materialize, you forge an energetic enclosure that imprisons the cosmos's eternal promise. Your bond to results acts as a restricting power, limiting the surge of potentials to the slender passage of your fancy. Yet the cosmos in its limitless insight perceives routes to fulfillment that your mortal intellect cannot comprehend. The oscillatory frequency of aspiration differs essentially from that of bond. Aspiration is the essence's innate extending toward growth, while bond is the self's fearful seizing at dominance. One expands you to accept, while the other contracts you to all but what you assume you require. This delicate yet essential distinction decides whether realization surges freely or stagnates in opposition. In the sun-kissed lowlands of the Orient resided Theo, whose orchards produced yields of fabled plenty. Unlike other cultivators who lingered anxiously over their growths, Theo merely sowed his kernels with distinct purpose, then departed until gathering time. Observers were perplexed by his seeming disregard. Yet his productions surpassed all others. The kernels comprehend how to develop, he would declare. My observing only disrupts their insight. Your realizations operate by the same rule. Once you sow the kernel of purpose, your perpetual inspecting and modifying only disturbs the innate process of its development. The cosmos demands realm to perform its enigmas unhindered by your urge to govern the process. To incorporate this insight, participate in the release rite. Seize a sheet of parchment and inscribe your wished result in specific aspect. Then beneath it etch these phrases: this or something superior in the impeccable manner at the impeccable moment for the utmost benefit of all involved. As you etch, sense the growth that accompanies freeing your bond to how your aspiration must manifest. Chapter 10. The Insight of Non-Response. In the hazy crests of timeless mountains, a legend resonates through the epochs of Commander Valeria, whose grandest triumph arrived not via might of weapons, but via the strength of retreat. As foe powers progressed toward her stance, Valeria performed what no martial leader had executed before. She guided her forces into the elevated passes and merely awaited. Her opponents, anticipating opposition, grew increasingly bewildered by her absence. In their urgency to confront, they dispersed their powers, hunting everywhere for a clash that would not transpire. Within cycles, their forces had disintegrated into disorder, vanquishing themselves without Valeria's forces delivering a solitary strike. The insight of non-response exceeds all tactics of compulsion. When you halt your pursuit, you harmonize with the innate order that rules all. This is the refined craft of permitting universal powers to operate unblocked by your meddling. In your realization journey, there arrives a juncture where every added response reduces rather than augments your wished result. Authentic non-response radiates strength, while inaction stemming from dread or indolence leads to inertia. The distinction resides in the caliber of your attendance. Are you merely evading strain? Or have you attained that polished condition of belief where you acknowledge that the cosmos needs no aid from you? When you achieve this comprehension, you turn into a pathway through which universal wisdom surges unobstructed. In a serene hamlet resided Adrian, a restorer sought by many for her wondrous remedies. Yet her grandest restorative talents surfaced only after she ceased attempting to restore. One cycle depleted from endless cures, she dwelled with a sufferer in silent yielding, providing no treatments or solutions. To her wonder, the sufferer's affliction vanished more thoroughly than any of her prior curative strains had accomplished. Via this encounter, Adrian uncovered that her grandest strength resided not in responding, but in embodying such a profound attendance that universal restoration could surge through her inherently. The cosmos operates with impeccable exactness when unhindered by mortal strain. Like Adrian, your role is not to compel realization to occur, but to permit yourself to become a transparent pathway through which it can happen inherently. This demands the valor to halt all responding and believe in the inherent wisdom that orchestrates all formation. To welcome this reality, participate in the holy non-response cycle. Select one complete cycle to wholly halt all strains toward your realization objectives. On this cycle, refrain from scheming, envisioning, affirming, or undertaking any response linked to your aspirations. Instead, dwell in absolute belief that the cosmic powers are already operating, requiring nothing from you but your consent to function freely. This engagement may test your urge for dominance, yet it unlocks the portal to strength beyond anything your responses could attain. Part 2, Intensifying into Celestial Yielding. Chapter 11. The Cadence of Yielding. In the core of an infinite ocean, a voyager named Lorenzo contended against the fierce swells and shifting depths. Cycle after cycle, he propelled onward, battling each wave as though the sea itself were his adversary. His provisions dwindled, and his vigor waned as he hunted urgently for the next harbor. One twilight, as hopelessness threatened to engulf him, a primordial silhouette materialized from the undulating horizons. His etched visage bore the insight of innumerable traversals, and his gaze mirrored the depths of oceanic knowledge. You contend against what should transport you. He noted, his tone like waves over shores. The ocean inhales in patterns, voyager. It tightens and broadens with its own cadence. Oppose this cadence and you will vanish. Harmonize with it and you will discover your route. Under his direction, Lorenzo mastered reading the ocean's respiration. When the swells intensified, he ceased battling and instead forged refuge, utilizing the time of tightening for repose and revival. When the swells eased, he advanced with swift intent, traversing vast expanses with simplicity. Via this yielding to innate cadence, he uncovered harbors that materialized, as if by enchantment, concealed in locales he would have surged past in his prior haste. The cosmos operates via these identical holy patterns of broadening and tightening. Your realization journey adheres to this eternal cadence, yet you oppose its innate surge. You seize for perpetual broadening, battling against essential periods of silence and retreat. This opposition forges the precise obstructions that block your aspirations from forming. Reflect on the account of Helena, a mariner whose modest craft once contended against the sea's potent currents. Each dawn she would compel her vessel through the receding tides, depleting herself and her companions while securing few bounties. An aged skipper observed her contention and imparted timeless insight. The current's withdrawal readies the impeccable instant for departure. Yield to its recession and you will ride its return to plenty. Helena mastered using the recession for readiness, repairing sails, restoring vitality, and plotting her trajectory. When the current shifted, her craft rode the depths with such simplicity that her bounties multiplied while her strain halved. Your realization adheres to the same design. Periods of seeming retreat forge the exact conditions required for exponential broadening. Via the yielding cadence engagement, you will master this cosmic rhythm. First, pinpoint where you reside in the pattern. Are you in a phase of broadening or tightening? During tightening, deepen your yielding via quiet embrace. Aware this interval fortifies your base. During broadening, convey appreciation while staying unbound, permitting the surge to transport you inherently. This holy cadence becomes your direction, revealing when to repose and when to ascend. Chapter 12. Yielding the schedule. In a glen graced with timeless groves, Marcus cultivated his plants with fierce insistence. Each dawn he would examine his foliage, requiring they produce their yield according to his exact timetable. When the sprouts surfaced too gradually, he imposed synthetic warmth. When blooms arose, he agitated the limbs, impatiently compelling growth before the winds arrived naturally. These plants must yield now, he would proclaim, for the exchange awaits none. One vernal dawn, as he readied to compel feed his plants with severe essences, a youthful wanderer appeared amid the limbs. The wanderer's gaze held a primordial insight that made Marcus hesitate. "Why do you battle against nature's impeccable timing?" the wanderer inquired, caressing a limb tenderly. "Each yield holds a cosmos of timing within its core. Your compulsion forges only vacant plenty." The wanderer escorted Marcus through the glen, displaying how plants that seemed inactive were actually amassing strength, how sprouts that appeared postponed were cultivating deeper foundations. Via the wanderer's vision, he commenced to perceive the intricate rhythm of timing that he had been interrupting with his demands. When you demand that your realizations arrive according to your restricted comprehension of time, you forge opposition against the cosmos's impeccable orchestration. The cosmic powers interweave innumerable strands to bring your aspirations into shape. Yet your requirement for instant outcomes unravels this celestial tapestry. Reflect on how Theo, whose vital dispatch to the council seemed too crucial to postpone. He navigated through gales, crossed perilous streams, and depleted 3 steeds in his urgency. Upon attaining the assembly halls, he uncovered they were sealed for a holy rite. Had he yielded to the voyage's innate pace, he would have arrived precisely as the halls opened, his dispatch becoming the impeccable culmination of the rite itself. The cosmos operates beyond the confines of sequential time. What seems as postponement often serves as celestial readiness, organizing situations for a result far superior than what you initially conceived. Your yielding to this reality opens pathways through which plenty surges naturally and impeccably. Via the schedule liberation ritual, you recognize this profounder insight. Seize your parchment and etch the date by which you believe your aspiration must materialize. Now, with veneration for cosmic timing, strike through this date and etch these phrases. This aspiration materializes at the impeccable instant, not an instant too premature or tardy, which I now know may be much swifter than my restricted intellect can envision. Chapter 13. Shattering the bonds of false self. In the magnificent arena of the imperial metropolis, Elena captivated crowds with her depiction of an enlightened oracle. Night after night, she embodied this figure with such conviction that the boundary between portrayal and actuality began to fade. Her fame extended widely until even the emperor dispatched a summons requesting her attendance at court. Yet when the imperial call arrived, Elena found herself incapable to comply. "How can I attend the emperor when I must depict the oracle each night?" she would utter, clutching her attire like a secondary layer. The arena became her haven, and her confinement the role both her victory and her bond. One twilight, as she readied for her depiction, a curious silhouette appeared in her preparation chamber. The court jester adorned in chimes and mismatched hues. Without formality, the jester began discarding his own attire piece by piece. "What resides beneath the jester?" he queried Elena. "And what endures when the oracle's garments are discarded?" Via this elementary gesture, Elena glimpsed a deep reality. She had become so entwined in her depiction that she had forgotten the pure consciousness that existed prior to any role. Your attachment to self functions precisely this way. Like Elena, you clutch tightly to who you believe yourself to be, your narrative, your roles, your gathered convictions. Each self becomes a attire so familiar that you mistake it for your authentic nature. Yet these very selves, whether of scarcity or restriction, contention or inadequacy, forge an energetic field that repels the precise plenty you seek to draw. Reflect on Gabriel, born to vast heritage, yet nurtured by remote kin, who instilled in him a profound sense of abundance lack. When his true legacy was finally disclosed, he could not accept it. "I am not destined for plenty," he would assert, turning from chances that arose. His self as one who lacked had become so fundamental that even tangible proof of his wealth could not penetrate this self-forged barrier. Only when a trusted guide led him to question this self did Gabriel begin to see how his attachment to being the deprived one had created an invisible wall between him and his natural plenty. As he yielded this false image, wealth surged effortlessly into his life, not as something novel, but as a recognition of what had always been his inheritance. The self-yielding contemplation invites you into the realm beyond all acquired selves. Find a tranquil space and sit comfortably. Close your eyes and inquire of yourself, "Who would I be without my narrative?" Allow each self to arise, the contender, the hunter, the unfortunate one, and watch as each dissolves into the vast consciousness that you truly are. Rest in this pure consciousness, the only state from which unlimited realization naturally surges. Before we advance to the next chapter, you can obtain a complimentary ebook edition of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 14. The Tongue of Coincidence. Along the elevated trails of the primordial uplands, Beatrice gripped her blueprint with unswerving certainty. 3 silver eagles traversed her path, soaring north. "Mere avians," she muttered, pressing southward. A wanderer passed, mentioning a protected glen to the north. "I know my direction," Beatrice insisted. Even when tempests gathered specifically in her chosen course, while radiance illuminated the northern trail, she dismissed these signs as mere happenstance. Shadows fell, and lost in the obscurity, Beatrice finally collapsed beneath an aged oak. In her depletion, something altered, a yielding of her certainty, a release of her need to know. As her grip on the blueprint loosened, her awareness expanded. Suddenly she saw with striking clarity how every sign, the eagles, the wanderer, the tempests themselves, had been orchestrating her journey, offering direction she had been too rigid to receive. When you release your insistence on governing life's course, the cosmos's hidden tongue becomes evident. This holy communication surges not through logic but through the enigmatic channels of coincidence. Yet this direction remains invisible until you yield your need to force meaning through the narrow lens of intellect. The cosmos speaks through 4 distinct coincidental dialects. First comes affirmation, repeated emblems or meetings that validate your chosen trail. Next arrives caution, persistent hurdles, or recurring trials that suggest re-evaluation. The third voice is guidance, an array of meaningful happenstances, pointing toward unexplored potentials. Finally, hastening manifests, a swift succession of aligned occurrences that propel you toward your aspiration once yielding is complete. In a timeless archive, far from the elevated trails, Lucas confronted a similar lesson. Night after night he pored over an undecipherable script, his scholarly intellect attacking it like an enigma to be resolved. Each dawn brought only frustration, the meaning slipping further from his grasp. One day depleted, he set the manuscript aside and wandered into the wilderness with no intent. As he yielded his quest for comprehension, the wilderness itself became a living interpretation. A bird's call echoed terms from the script. Natural formations reflected its symbols. Echoes between elements mirrored its patterns. By releasing his grip on intellectual comprehension, Lucas allowed meaning to find him through the mysterious tongue of coincidence. The Coincidence Diary summons you to this same yielding. For 7 cycles, record every meaningful happenstance without attempting to decode its message. Note the repeated sequences, the recurring motifs, the unexpected links that grace your trail. On the 8th cycle, release your need to comprehend. Let go of deciphering. Allow the collective insight of these coincidences to reveal itself in its own impeccable time, through its own impeccable channel. Chapter 15. The Grand Dissolution. In a sunlit sanctuary at the heart of a primordial city, Sophia sat before her life's masterwork, a mosaic of unmatched complexity and splendor. Each tile represented a conviction, a motif, a mode of being that she had carefully assembled over decades. Yet as she gazed upon her creation, she noticed something unusual at the edges, tiles beginning to loosen and detach of their own accord. At first, Sophia frantically tried to secure the dissolving tiles to maintain the perfect motif she had labored so long to create, but with each attempt to govern, more tiles came loose. In her depletion, she finally yielded to the enigmatic dissolution. As she observed without opposition, a remarkable metamorphosis began. The tiles didn't simply fall away. They rearranged themselves into a motif far more magnificent than anything she could have designed, revealing a truth that transcended her limited vision. When you yield completely to the natural dissolution of what no longer serves you, metamorphosis occurs without strain. Your restricting convictions, persistent motifs, and deep bonds begin to dissolve not through compulsion, but through the simple cessation of opposition. This is the contradiction that most seekers never grasp. The more you struggle to break free from limitation, the more firmly you anchor it in place. In the depths of a primordial stronghold, Theo discovered this truth through different circumstances. Year after year, he hurled himself against the walls of his cell, wounding his hands on unyielding stone. His opposition to captivity became a captivity itself, blinding him to the truth before his eyes. Only when depletion finally claimed his will to fight did he notice what had been there all along, an unlocked portal waiting silently for his yielding. Your own liberation follows the same principle. The very limitations you fight against are strengthened by your opposition. Yet in the moment of complete yielding, when you cease all strain to change, what is the portal to metamorphosis swings open of its own accord. The yielding dissolution invites you to identify your most persistent limitation, that motif or conviction that has resisted all efforts to overcome it. Rather than continuing the futile fight, turn toward it with complete embrace, declaring, "I yield all opposition to this motif," allowing the perfect intelligence of the cosmos to dissolve it in divine order. Chapter 16. Affluence through Yielding. In the vibrant exchange of a primordial metropolis, Clara moved from booth to booth, her gaze scanning desperately for chances to augment her diminishing riches. Each enterprise she pursued left her poorer than before, her hands grasping ever more tightly to what little remained. As vendors called their goods and tokens exchanged hands around her, a peculiar silhouette caught her attention. A mendicant sitting in peaceful contentment, distributing the few tokens placed in his vessel. Intrigued and somewhat annoyed by this display of folly, Clara approached the mendicant. "Why do you distribute what little you receive?" The mendicant's gaze held primordial insight as he replied, "What flows through me cannot be lost to me. What you clutch so tightly has already escaped your grasp." Through this celestial encounter, Clara discovered the first fundamental truth of plenty, that wealth, like currents, must circulate to remain vital and fresh. Your desperate attempts to accumulate and hold on to resources create energetic stagnation that repels rather than attracts prosperity. The cosmos operates through continuous flow, not accumulation. The 7 rules of yielded affluence reveal themselves only when you release your grip on material security. In a distant Glen Elias, the cultivator faced a devastating choice during the harshest scarcity in memory. With only a handful of kernels remaining, he watched creatures gathering near his threshold. Against all conventional insight, he yielded his last hope of endurance, casting the kernels to the hungry creatures. As the cycles turned, those same creatures had scattered his kernels across fertile soil. He could never have reached yielding a harvest beyond imagination. This mirrors your own journey with material plenty. When you release your bond to specific forms of wealth, allowing the cosmos to determine how prosperity reaches you, you harmonize with forces of affluence far greater than your limited strategies could access. To embody this insight in physical form, the affluence release awaits you. Take a piece of currency, perhaps a single coin. Inscribe upon it a blessing for its next holder, infusing it with positive intent. Then release it into the world, yielding all expectation of return. This simple gesture signals to the cosmos your belief in the endless flow of plenty. Chapter 17. Celestial Timing. Beyond the fortress barriers, Beatrice crafted chronometers of unmatched precision. Her devices measured each interval with flawless accuracy, dividing time into perfect segments that seemed to capture the very essence of order. Yet a strange motif emerged. Those who acquired her masterpieces found their lives descending into disorder. Traders missed crucial opportunities. Voyagers arrived at havens after their crafts had departed, and cultivators lost yields by sowing according to numerical timetables, rather than nature's cadence. One midnight, as Beatrice pondered this enigma, a primordial sage materialized in her atelier. Without uttering, the sage led her to the woodland's edge, where they watched blossoms open not by the interval, but in perfect response to the dawn's light. Creatures began their melodies not at a fixed moment, but at the precise instant that harmonized with awakening. In that instant, Beatrice understood. She had been measuring time but not flowing with it. You too have been bound by the mirage of linear time, believing that realization must follow your carefully planned timetable. Yet the cosmos operates through sacred timing, a divine orchestration of countless unseen elements that must align perfectly for your aspiration to materialize in its most magnificent form. When you insist that plenty must arrive by a certain date, you create opposition to the very forces working to bring you something far greater than your limited intellect can conceive. Reflect on how your most treasured graces arrived at moments you once labeled too tardy. That vocation chance that seemed postponed opened portals you couldn't have imagined earlier. The connection that materialized behind schedule came when both you and your counterpart had completed essential inner labor. What appeared as celestial delay was actually celestial perfection. In a small hamlet, Clara attended arrivals for over 3 decades. Early in her engagement, she tried to predict and govern the timing of each emergence. Yet nature taught her profound insight. Every arrival comes at the exact instant when all conditions, physical, emotional, spiritual, align in perfect harmony. Those arrivals that seemed postponed often carried hidden graces, a critical aid provider arriving just in time, or the bearer completing an essential emotional release before the arrival's first breath. Your realizations follow this same divine insight. Like an arrival, they cannot be forced before their time, without compromising their perfection. Each aspiration you've planted in the fertile soil of consciousness gestates according to universal rule, gathering all elements required for its complete expression. Your only task is to yield to this perfect timing, knowing that what appears as delay is actually precision beyond human comprehension. Through the celestial chronometer contemplation, you release the burden of timing into the cosmos's capable grasp. Settle into sacred silence and envision your aspiration as a kernel already planted in rich soil. With each breath, yield all anxiety about when it will sprout. Declare with complete belief, this realization unfolds in perfect celestial timing, which I now trust completely. Chapter 18. The Yielding of Connections. In a grove filled with blossoms, Leonard spent countless intervals trying to shape his beloved Clara into his vision of perfection. Each cycle he would trim away what he deemed imperfect, offering suggestions for enhancement, subtle critiques wrapped in concern. With every attempt to mold her, he watched her spirit withdraw, like a bloom closing its petals to protect itself from chill. Only when his core broke from the growing distance between them did he finally understand his affection had become an enclosure. Through your own connections, you have discovered this same truth. Each time you grasp tightly, attempting to secure affection through dominance, you create the very separation you fear. Your anticipations become invisible bonds, binding not just the other, but yourself to an illusion of what should be rather than what is. The cosmos operates through a profound contradiction in matters of the heart. Only in complete freedom can true union flourish. When you release your grip on how another should think, feel, or behave, you create the sacred realm in which authentic affection can bloom. This yielding is not abandonment, but the highest form of affection, one that trusts enough to allow the beloved their full sovereignty. Reflect on Sophia, the renowned avian trainer whose prized falcon performed intricate aerial displays when bound. Yet something was missing in its choreographed perfection. One dawn, moved by an inner knowing, Sophia removed its bindings and opened her hand. The falcon soared away, and her heart soared with it, not knowing if it would return. Cycles passed until one morning the falcon descended from the clouds, performing maneuvers of such splendor that observers were moved. In its freedom, it chose to share gifts far greater than captivity could ever produce. Your connections carry this same potential. Each time you yield the need to govern their unfolding, you allow a deeper enchantment to emerge. The one you cherish becomes not what you demanded, but what they were always meant to be. In releasing your grip, you discover that true affection never needs securing. It flourishes precisely because it is free. The connection release. Take a moment now to identify one anticipation you hold for an important connection. Write it clearly on a piece of parchment, feeling its weight in your life. Then, in a sacred realm, ignite a flame and carefully burn the parchment. While speaking these phrases, I release you to be exactly as you are, not as I wish you to be, knowing that in this freedom our true union can flourish. Chapter 19. Vitality and Harmony. In an era when restoration was measured by the potency of cures, Beatrice's reputation drew seekers from distant realms. Her repositories held elixirs and infusions for every malady, her methods exact and computed. Yet when a mysterious affliction befell her, one that defied her extensive knowledge, she discovered that her own remedy chest offered no relief. Through months of contention battling against her form's decline, she depleted herself with treatments and interventions. Until one midnight in the depths of her suffering she yielded. In that instant of complete release, she felt her form's whispered insight for the first time, not as an adversary to be conquered, but as an intelligence far greater than her trained intellect could comprehend. Your form holds this same sacred insight. When you release the grip of dominance, cease the endless battle against indications and yield to its innate intelligence. Restoration surges not through compulsion, but through permitting. This yielding activates regenerative capacities that transcend remedial understanding capacities that remain dormant when blocked by opposition and apprehension. The form speaks in sensations, not phrases. Each indication carries a message. Each discomfort holds a teaching. Yet these messages remain unheard when you rush to silence them with cures. True restoration begins when you yield the need to fix and instead listen with complete embrace to what your form wishes to reveal. Elias, a guardian renowned for his fortitude, learned this truth through his own journey. After a devastating conflict wound, he sought restorers throughout the land, each offering increasingly aggressive treatments. His opposition to the injury only deepened his suffering, until an ancient wisdom-bearer taught him to yield to the wound itself. As he released his fight against his form's condition, the wound began teaching him a new way of inhabiting his shape. Through yielding, he discovered that his form knew precisely how to restore itself. It had simply been waiting for his permission to proceed. The form-yielding scan summons you into this primordial restorative insight, passed down through countless generations of restorers, who understood the sacred dialogue between consciousness and shape. Lie in complete tranquility, allowing your awareness to float like a gentle current through your being, pausing wherever you encounter tension, discomfort, or disharmony. Rather than attempting to change or fix these areas through force of will, yield fully into their current state, embracing them as teachers bearing precious insight. With each slow, mindful breath, let your opposition dissolve like morning mist. Feel how your exhalations carry away the need to dominate while your inhalations fill you with belief in your form's timeless intelligence. As you rest in this realm of deep permitting, silently affirm with each rhythmic breath, I yield completely to the perfect insight of my form, trusting its innate and unstoppable movement toward wholeness through embrace. I allow my natural restoration to unfold. Chapter 20. The Oscillation of Permitting. In the core of a primordial shrine, Clara devoted her existence to mastering an elusive harmony, said to hold the power to awaken essences. For years, she practiced tirelessly, her skilled digits dancing across resonances with technical perfection. Yet the sacred melody remained beyond her reach, its essence slipping away with each determined attempt to capture it. One twilight depleted from endless practice, Clara lowered her instrument and simply sat in silence. In that instant of complete yielding, something shifted. Her hands moved of their own accord, and through her, flowed the very melody she had sought, not played by her, but playing through her. This profound truth lies at the heart of realization. When you cease trying to force aspirations into being and instead become an empty vessel, you enter the precise oscillatory state through which plenty naturally surges. This is not passive waiting, but active permitting, a subtle yet powerful distinction that determines whether your yielding leads to stagnation or magnificent realization. True, permitting requires you to maintain clear intent while releasing all strain to make it happen. Like a crystal vessel waiting to be filled, you hold the shape of your aspiration while remaining empty enough for the cosmos to pour into you. This creates the perfect energetic conditions for realization to surge through you, rather than from you. Theo, a custodian of a primordial spring, discovered this truth through his own journey. Cycle after cycle, he strained to draw essence from the sealed spring using every tool and technique he knew. The spring remained dry until one dawn, in complete depletion, he yielded his strains. At that instant, he noticed a small passage that had always existed. With one gentle touch, essence flowed abundantly. The spring had never needed his strain, only his recognition and permitting of the existing surge. Your aspirations operate through this same principle. Everything you seek already exists in potential shape, waiting not to be created, but to be revealed through your permitting. When you shift from trying to make things happen to simply opening the channels through which they can surge, realization becomes seamless. The permitting attunement is a sacred engagement that will guide you into this receptive state of pure potential. Find a quiet realm where you won't be disturbed and settle into a comfortable contemplation position. Let your shoulders relax and your breath deepen naturally. Open your palms upward as though ready to receive precious offerings from the cosmos, and allow your heart center to soften and expand. Feel yourself becoming a clear pathway free of opposition. When you feel centered, speak these phrases with quiet conviction, letting each syllable resonate through your being. I am now the perfect vessel through which infinite plenty flows effortlessly and gracefully. I release all opposition and allow all that is destined for my highest good to come to me in divine order and perfect timing. The cosmos moves through me with ease and grace. Let these phrases settle into your energy field, like golden radiance filling every cell of your being with their truth. Remain in this receptive state for as long as feels right, knowing that you have activated a powerful pathway for realization. Part 3. Mastery through complete yielding. Chapter 21. The fruitful emptiness. In the shadows of a primordial peak, Theo, whose inspirations had motivated thousands, found himself unable to bring forth even the simplest creation. His source of inspiration, once boundless, had run dry. No amount of strain or technique could summon the divine surge that had once moved through him so seamlessly. As he wandered the peak trails in despair, a recluse emerged from the vapors, beckoning him toward a hidden cavern. Without phrases, the mysterious figure led Theo into absolute obscurity. At first, panic gripped him. The emptiness seemed to swallow his very essence. Yet as he yielded to the emptiness, something extraordinary awakened within him. In the complete absence of all shapes, he encountered the shapeless source of all creation. This truth lies at the heart of realization. The emptiness you fear is actually the womb of all possibility. When you yield completely to void, you discover it is not void at all, but pregnant with infinite potential. Like the obscurity before dawn, the emptiness contains all creation in kernel shape, waiting to emerge through your conscious yielding. Your aspirations can only materialize through the realm you create by releasing. Just as a chamber must be empty to be filled with new elements, your existence must have realm for greater plenty to enter. This realm is not created through clearing or purifying, but through deep yielding into the emptiness that exists beyond all shape. Clara, a sovereign of vast territories, discovered this insight when her domain crumbled. Sitting in her empty throne chamber, stripped of all authority and holdings, she yielded completely to her loss. In that instant of absolute emptiness, she noticed a slight current that led her to discover a hidden vault. There, beyond the walls of her former glory, lay treasures that exceeded everything she had lost, riches that could only be found through the portal of complete yielding. The emptiness is not an absence, but a fullness beyond shape. Like the quantum field that discoverers have uncovered, contains infinite potential energy in seemingly empty realm. The emptiness of yielding holds all possibilities within its mysterious depths. The emptiness immersion invites you into this fruitful nothingness. Create a realm of complete obscurity and silence, then enter it for 30 minutes. Yield all doing, thinking, and striving. Allow yourself to be embraced by the fruitful nothingness from which all creation springs. Chapter 22. Dwelling in the yielding condition. In the shimmering heat of endless dunes, Clara stumbled forward, her provisions long depleted. For cycles she had followed blueprints and computations, each haven proving to be nothing but illusions. Her scholarly knowledge of desert navigation had led her only deeper into desolation. As her strength failed, she encountered an aging wanderer, sitting peacefully beside a spring that seemed to materialize from nowhere. The wanderer offered essence without phrases, then taught Clara a truth that transformed her journey. Essence flows beneath these sands in patterns ancient as time itself. Those who seek never find. Those who yield are naturally guided. Under the wanderer's direction, Clara learned to release her desperate searching. As she yielded her need to find essence, her form began moving in harmony with the desert's hidden cadences. Without blueprints or methods, she found herself naturally walking the paths where springs bubbled up from depths unknown. The more completely she yielded, the more reliably essence appeared. This insight extends far beyond finding essence in deserts. The masters of realization understand that yielding is not an occasional engagement, but a permanent condition of being. Just as Clara learned to move in constant harmony with essence's surge, you too can learn to dwell continuously in the yielding condition, allowing all plenty to find you naturally. 5 attributes mark this condition of perpetual yielding. Receptivity, remaining constantly open to receive like an empty vessel. Trust, maintaining unwavering faith in the cosmos's perfect orchestration. Presence, dwelling fully in each instant without reaching for the next. Curiosity, viewing all circumstances with innocent wonder rather than evaluation. Grace, moving through existence with fluid embrace rather than rigid dominance. Reflect on Beatrice, whose visions transformed countless existences. Yet her true power lay not in dramatic revelations but in her constant condition of divine receptivity. She moved through each instant completely empty of personal will, allowing universal insight to surge through her as naturally as breathing. Those who sought her counsel often found their answers not in her phrases but in her presence. The living embodiment of perpetual yielding. The yielding condition anchoring invites you to identify 3 daily triggers. Perhaps the sound of winds at dawn, the feeling of essence on your hands, the threshold of your abode that will serve as reminders to instantly drop into complete yielding. Let each trigger initiate an instant of total permitting, gradually extending these instants until yielding becomes your natural condition of being. Chapter 23. The Vanishing of Contention. In the core of a peak hamlet, Elias's daily voyage became legend. Each dawn he would grasp the handles of his heavy conveyance and begin the arduous ascent up the steep trail to the exchange. Years of this labor had transformed his frame into that of a mighty sentinel. Yet his progress remained slow, measured in fragments rather than distances. One cycle, as perspiration poured from his brow, a youth sat watching from a stone barrier. "Why do you push so hard when the peak itself offers a way?" the youth asked, eyes twinkling with primordial insight. Elias paused, his muscles aching from constant strain. The youth led him to a particular point on the trail, a spot where the incline changed almost imperceptibly. "Release your conveyance here," the youth instructed, "and watch what the peak knows." Skeptical but intrigued, Elias did as suggested. To his amazement, the conveyance began rolling on its own, following a natural course that wound efficiently to the exchange. In that instant, he understood that his years of contention had been unnecessary. The trail itself contained the solution. The cosmos operates through this same principle of seamless accomplishment. You have been taught that results require strain, that success demands contention, that realization must be forced into being through sheer determination. Yet this is an illusion born of limited perception. True power lies not in exertion, but in harmony. When you yield the need to force outcomes, you discover that universal forces stand ready to accomplish with ease what human strain could never achieve. This is not indolence, but the highest form of spiritual efficiency. Reflect on Marcus, whose creations were once born of pain. His digits would crack and bleed as he forced each element into place, believing that splendor required suffering. But one cycle, his hands could no longer grasp the elements. In that instant of forced yielding, he discovered a lighter touch, allowing the patterns to emerge rather than forcing them into being. His subsequent works achieved renowned splendor yet required no strain to create. The sensation of contention itself becomes a signal that you have moved out of harmony with universal surge. Each tension, each strain, each instant of forcing indicates an opportunity to yield into greater ease. The contradiction reveals itself. The more you release the need to contend, the more seamlessly your aspirations materialize. The strain-yielding scan summons you to this deeper awareness. Bring attention to any sensation of strain, pushing, or forcing in your realization engagements. Then consciously release these tensions while affirming, "I now yield all contention," allowing universal forces to accomplish with ease what my strain could never achieve. Chapter 24. The Cosmos in Motion. In the depths of his fertile glen, Sophia faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable. A massive obstruction unearthed by vernal floods lay embedded in her most productive terrain. Cycle after cycle, she strained against its unmovable mass, employing every tool and technique her experience suggested. Her muscles ached, her spirit weakened until finally depleted beyond measure. She collapsed beside the obstruction in complete yielding. "I release this burden," she whispered to the evening expanse. "I can do no more." That midnight, a powerful tempest swept through the glen. When dawn broke, Sophia discovered the obstruction shattered perfectly by a surge broken into pieces she could easily clear from her terrain. This seemingly miraculous occurrence reveals a profound truth about the nature of realization. The cosmos operates with an intelligence far beyond your limited perspective, employing forces you cannot comprehend to accomplish what your human strain could never achieve. When you cease your straining and struggling, you create the very realm through which these cosmic forces can operate unimpeded. You will notice that your greatest breakthroughs often arrive through unexpected pathways, materializing in ways your logical intellect could never have devised. What appears as coincidence or chance to your limited perception is actually the precise orchestration of universal forces activated by your yielding. Reflect on how Elias spent years attempting to mend the rift with his estranged kin. Every direct approach, missives, communications, shared allies only seemed to widen the divide. It was only when he completely yielded his need to control the reconciliation that the cosmos began its subtle work. A chance meeting at a crossroads, a shared sorrow over an old companion's passing, a lost relic discovered in a storage. A dozen seemingly random events gently wove their lives back together, accomplishing effortlessly what all his striving could not achieve. The cosmos requires no assistance from you to materialize your highest good, only your permission in the form of yielding. Every strain you make to force an outcome actually creates opposition to the perfect unfolding already in motion. For your engagement, participate in the cosmic motion inventory. Examine the last 3 realizations in your existence, particularly those that seem to arise coincidentally. List the unlikely events, unexpected meetings, or surprising turns that contributed to each outcome. These are not random occurrences, but evidence of universal forces already working on your behalf, revealed only when you step back and yield. Chapter 25. The Yielding of Intent. In a remote sanctuary high in the peaks, Clara devoted her existence to disseminating ethereal teachings across distant territories. Each voyage took her further from home as she sought to fulfill what she believed was her celestial calling. Yet with each mission accomplished, an inexplicable emptiness grew within her. Despite touching countless existences, something felt missing from her own. One dawn, preparing for her longest voyage yet, Clara found herself unable to pack her traveling satchel. A profound weariness overcame her, not of form, but of spirit. In that instant of complete depletion, She yielded her lifelong mission, deciding to remain at the sanctuary she had always been so eager to leave. In the quiet that followed, Clara discovered a depth of intent she had never imagined. The local inhabitants whom she had overlooked in her zeal to reach distant shores began seeking her presence not for grand teachings, but for the peace they felt in her yielded condition. Her greatest work blossomed not through her striving, but through her simple being. When you cling to your vision of ethereal intent, you create the very limitations that prevent your truest gifts from emerging. Your perceived calling, no matter how noble, becomes an enclosure that confines the infinite ways your radiance might shine. Only in releasing your bond to how you must serve can your authentic contribution naturally unfold. Theo, a restorer renowned throughout his territory, faced this truth when his gift suddenly vanished. For years, people had traveled great distances to receive his restorative touch. His self and intent were completely entwined with this ability. When it disappeared, he fell into despair, yielding his role as restorer in bitter embrace. Yet in this yielding, something extraordinary occurred. A new kind of restorative presence emerged through him, one that worked not through technique or strain, but through his transformed condition of being. Those in his presence found themselves restoring in ways his previous abilities could never have achieved. His true intent had found him only when he released all bond to intent itself. The intent release ceremony invites you to experience this profound yielding. Take a piece of parchment and write down your most cherished ethereal intent, or calling the divine mission you believe you must fulfill. Then release this parchment to the elements, burn it, bury it, or let it float away in moving currents, while declaring, "I yield even my highest intent," trusting that what returns will transcend what I release. Chapter 26. The Amplified Strength of Celestial Non-Motion. In ancient epics, Elias served as the realm's most devoted laborer, his hands touching every vital task from dawn to dusk. His efficiency became legendary. Yet this very prowess bound both him and the realm to limitation. When affliction forced him to his repose, he struggled against the fever, desperate to maintain his grip on the realm's operations. Only when depletion overcame his opposition did he yield control, delegating his many duties among the assembly. What followed transformed not only Elias, but the entire realm. As others stepped into roles he had guarded jealously, their unique gifts emerged. The royal groves flourished under a young disciple's intuitive touch. The treasury multiplied through a quiet recorder's brilliant innovations. The storehouses overflowed as cultivators implemented improvements Elias would never have conceived. Within your own sphere, such exponential strength awaits your tactical yielding. When you release your grip on how things must be done, you create realm for universal forces to work through multiple pathways simultaneously. This truth reveals three distinct modes of realization. Frantic motion springs from apprehension and grasping, depleting your energy, while yielding diminishing returns. Though you may appear productive, this desperate motion actually constricts the surge of plenty. Aligned motion emerges from inspiration and surges with grace. While more effective than frantic motion, it still limits results to what you personally can achieve. But powerful non-motion, the conscious choice to step back and allow universal forces to work unhindered, creates a vacuum that draws in exponential results through countless unseen pathways. Reflect on the tale of Sophia, captain of a merchant vessel caught in a devastating tempest. Though her crew begged her to fight the winds, she recognized a greater insight in the chaos. Yielding the helm, she allowed her vessel to be carried by forces beyond her dominance. While other vessels sought safe anchorage, only Sophia's yielding positioned her to discover an abundant new territory where no planned course could have led. Your own journey of realization follows this same principle. What appears as chaos often disguises the cosmos's reorganizing of circumstances for your highest good. But this reorganization can only occur when you yield your limited patterns of motion. The tactical non-motion declaration. Choose one active realization goal that burns brightest in your core. Take a fresh piece of parchment and with clear intent, write your aspiration in precise detail, not as a wish, but as a sacred affirmation to the cosmos. Then, in a quiet realm where you can fully connect with the deeper insight within, Speak these phrases with conviction and reverence. For 7 cycles, I completely and unconditionally yield all motion toward this cherished aspiration. With perfect faith and unwavering trust, I step back from my own limited ways of motion. I release my need to dominate and allow the infinite intelligence of universal forces to work unhindered through countless pathways I cannot yet perceive. In the depths of my being, I know with absolute certainty that what emerges through this sacred yielding will far exceed anything my personal strain alone could achieve. I trust in the perfect unfolding of divine timing. Let these phrases resonate in your core as you feel the profound shift from motion to permitting, from forcing to flowing. This affirmation becomes your bridge between limited human motion and limitless universal potential. Chapter 27. Absolute Belief. In the misty crests of a primordial mountain range, Elias stood at the edge of a vast chasm. Across the void, he could see his destination, a gleaming sanctuary that had called to him in visions. But no span bridged the empty realm. No trail revealed itself through the swirling vapors below. For cycles, he searched the cliff's edge, seeking some hidden crossing, until depletion brought him to his knees. It was then that a primordial master emerged from the morning mist. Without phrases, the master stepped directly toward the precipice. Elias reached out to stop him, but watched in awe as the elder's foot touched what appeared to be empty realm and held firm. With each step, a bridge of radiance materialized beneath his feet, visible only after he moved forward in complete belief. This threshold you now face represents the final gateway between the realm of limited realization and the domain of wonders. Here, the cosmos asks not for careful computation, but for absolute belief, a yielding so complete that it precedes all evidence. Most seek proof before believing, demanding the bridge appear before taking the step. But this conditional belief keeps you bound to the realm of incremental change, where realization creeps forward at the pace of logic. Absolute belief moves first stepping into apparent emptiness, with unwavering certainty that support will appear. This is how quantum leaps in realization occur, through belief that transcends reason. Reflect on Beatrice, appointed guardian of the sacred currents that had flowed since time immemorial. When the source suddenly ran dry, all logic demanded she abandon her post. Fellow guardians departed, calling her foolish for maintaining her vigil beside empty channels. But Beatrice's belief ran deeper than evidence. She continued her ceremonies before dry fountains, speaking to the currents as if they still flowed. Others mocked her certainty until the day the ground trembled and currents returned with such force that new channels had to be carved to contain their plenty. Her belief without proof had created the very proof others required for belief. This same principle operates in your realization journey. The evidence you seek can only appear after you step forward in complete belief. The bridge materializes beneath your feet, never before them. The Belief Fall Contemplation. Sit quietly in a peaceful realm and visualize yourself standing at the edge of a magnificent precipice. Feel the infinite vastness of realm extending before you into eternity. Let your awareness expand to embrace the profound emptiness, knowing it contains all possibilities. Now, with your core open and your spirit aligned with primordial insight, allow yourself to fall forward, completely yielding every vestige of physical security and mental certainty. Release all bond to the visible world as you yield to the unseen forces that have guided seekers throughout the ages. As you traverse through the sacred void, speak these phrases with unwavering conviction, letting them resonate through every fiber of your being. I believe absolutely in what I cannot see, knowing it is more real and reliable than what stands before my eyes. The unseen realms hold the true substance of all realization. Chapter 28. Beyond Cognition. In the hallowed corridors of a primordial archive, Clara pored over scrolls and manuscripts, seeking the answer to a philosophical enigma that had mystified sages for centuries. Her intellect, sharp as an edge from decades of study, had mastered every school of cognition. Yet the answer remained elusive. The more she analyzed, the further the truth seemed to slip away. One cycle, wandering in frustration through a meadow, she encountered a sage sitting in perfect tranquility. Clara eagerly shared her intellectual quest, but the sage remained silent, eyes closed, emanating an inexplicable knowing. As Clara sat beside him, hours passed in silence, until her racing cognitions began to quiet. In that realm between cognitions, the answer she had sought emerged with crystal clarity, not as a product of thinking, but as a direct knowing that bypassed the intellect entirely. When you yield the intellect's constant activity, you open yourself to a higher intelligence that operates beyond cognition. Your analytical intellect, magnificent as it is, creates the very barrier that blocks your deepest realizations. Like a transmitter trying to broadcast and receive simultaneously, your thinking drowns out the cosmos's broadcast of solutions, insights, and plenty. Reflect on Elias, whose brilliant computational intellect had wrestled with an equation that defied solution. For 3 years he applied every known formula and theorem, pushing his cognitive abilities to their limits. One midnight, depleted beyond cognition, he yielded his mental striving completely. In that instant of mental silence, he watched in awe as the symbols on his page seemed to dance and rearrange themselves, revealing a solution that his calculating intellect could never have conceived. The cosmos's intelligence surges not through cognition, but through the realm between cognitions. Your intellect's activity, like turbulent currents, distorts the reflection of truth. Only when the currents grow still can actuality reflect clearly. This is why your most profound revelations often arrive in moments of mental quiet, the early dawn during contemplation, or just before repose. The cognition-yielding contemplation. Sit comfortably in a quiet realm where you won't be disturbed, letting your form settle into a position of natural ease. Allow your awareness to rest gently on the steady stream of cognitions passing through your intellect, like a witness watching clouds drift across an endless expanse. Watch each cognition as it arises, whether mundane or profound, without engaging or following its trail, visualizing it dissolving into luminous realm before the next appears. Notice the brief, precious gaps between cognitions, those instants of pure clarity that exist naturally in your consciousness. Gradually allow these realms to lengthen like the widening distances between waves on a calming sea. As your intellect grows quieter, you may sense a deepening tranquility, a sacred emptiness pregnant with possibility. Rest in this fertile void of pure awareness, becoming receptive to the subtle whispers of universal intelligence that can only be heard in silence. Feel yourself opening like a bloom to the sunlight, allowing divine insight to surge through the realm you have created, bringing with it insights, solutions, and realizations that your thinking intellect could never have conceived. Chapter 29. The Alchemy of Appreciation and Yielding. In a hidden vault beneath a primordial metropolis, Elias bent over his alchemist station surrounded by the world's rarest components. For decades he had followed every sacred formula combining precious materials with precise measurements. Yet radiance remained elusive. His repositories held vessels of dawn dew, moonlight captured in crystal, and essences distilled from the rarest blooms, all to no avail. One midnight, depleted by failure, he wept into his final experiment, while whispering appreciation for all he had learned through his attempts. As his tears of yielding merged with his core's genuine thankfulness, he watched in awe as the contents of his crucible transformed instantly into pure radiance, a metamorphosis that defied every known law of alchemy. You stand now at the threshold of understanding the highest alchemy, the sacred union of appreciation and yielding. This combination creates an oscillatory frequency so powerful it accelerates realization beyond all other ethereal engagements combined. Like two wings of the same avian, neither can soar alone. Appreciation without yielding becomes bond to what is, while yielding without appreciation descends into mere resignation. Yet when merged, they create the exact resonance that collapses time itself in the realization process. Reflect on Sophia, whose life's work was constructing a sanctuary that all said was impossible. For years she labored following her grand vision until a surge destroyed half her progress. In that instant of devastation, she did something remarkable. She yielded her bond to her original plans, while simultaneously giving thanks for this apparent disaster. This appreciative yielding opened a portal to divine inspiration, revealing an entirely new design that surpassed her original vision in every way. What seemed like destruction became the catalyst for realization beyond imagination. This mirrors a profound truth. When you achieve the precise oscillatory harmony of appreciative yielding, you transcend linear time itself. Future realizations collapse into present experience, bypassing the need for gradual progression. This is not enchantment, but quantum mechanics operating at the ethereal level. The appreciation-yielding fusion summons you to enter this sacred transformative condition, an engagement as ancient as the mystics who first discovered its strength. Choose something you deeply aspire to, but has not yet materialized in your physical actuality. Perhaps a vision, a union, or an achievement that calls to your essence. Enter a condition of complete and unconditional yielding, releasing every last thread of bond to how this blessing must appear, or when it should grace your existence. Let your grip on dominance dissolve like morning mist in the warmth of belief. Simultaneously, allow genuine heartfelt appreciation to overflow from the depths of your being, as if your aspiration has already materialized in its perfect shape. Feel the joy, the wonder, the profound gratitude coursing through your form, as though you are experiencing your realization in this very instant. This is not pretense, but rather accessing the timeless dimension where all possibilities already exist. Maintain this paradoxical consciousness, this delicate dance of letting go, while giving thanks for 7 sacred minutes each cycle. Dwell in this mystical union where yielding and appreciation merge into one powerful force, creating a vibrational signature that the cosmos cannot help but answer. Let each breath during these instants be both a release and a celebration, as you rest in the sacred realm where time bends to consciousness itself. Chapter 30. The Craft of Non-Motion. Elias's quest for awakening led him across peaks, through sacred glens, and into the presence of countless masters. His ethereal satchel grew heavy with engagements, chants from distant lands, gestures from exotic traditions, rites from remote cultures. Each technique promised the awakening he sought, yet awakening remained elusive. One cycle depleted from his endless seeking, he collapsed beneath an ancient growth where a sage sat laughing. "Why do you laugh?" Elias asked wearily. "Because you seek what you already are," the sage replied. "Put down your heavy load of engagements. Rest as the awareness in which all experience occurs." At that instant, Elias understood all his ethereal techniques, like clouds, had obscured the ever-present radiance of his true nature. You stand now at this same threshold of understanding. The ultimate refinement of realization requires no technique at all. This may seem counterintuitive to your intellect trained in motion. Yet the complete cessation of seeking creates the precise conditions through which all you have sought can finally find you. This truth reveals itself through the story of Beatrice, who spent years pursuing union through endless self-enhancement. She studied attraction techniques, attended connection workshops, and transformed herself according to every expert's counsel. Yet true union eluded her until the cycle she yielded all seeking and simply fell in union with her own presence. Within weeks, her perfect counterpart appeared, drawn naturally to the magnetic force of her self-contained completeness. This mirrors the ultimate contradiction of realization. What you most desperately seek is actively seeking you but cannot find you while you chase it. Like trying to perceive your own vision without a reflector, the very act of seeking creates the illusion of separation from what you aspire to. The sacred nothingness engagement summons you into this profound condition of non-motion, this exquisite yielding to the infinite. Set a chronometer for 11 minutes. This number carries ancient significance in ethereal traditions as a gateway between realms, and allow yourself to enter complete tranquility. Not contemplating in any formal sense, not reciting affirmations, not engaging in envisioning, not analyzing or processing your cognitions. Simply rest as pure, unbounded awareness, like an infinite expanse that holds all things without strain or effort. In this sacred realm of nothingness, you become the vast cosmic arena through which the cosmos naturally expresses itself. Like a clear reflector that neither grasps nor rejects what it reflects, you rest as the luminous realm in which all aspirations spontaneously arise and dissolve. Your only task is to remain as this open presence, allowing the divine intelligence that orchestrates galaxies to work through you unimpeded. In this condition of perfect permitting, you discover that realization requires no strain. It is your natural condition when all motion falls away. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I created a complimentary ebook version for you. You can obtain it using the link in the pinned comment. Conclusion. Through these chapters, you have traversed a primordial trail, one that sages and masters throughout time have recognized as the ultimate key to manifesting actuality. Yet this insight differs from all other realization teachings, for it reveals that true strength lies not in motion, but in the complete release of motion. The contradiction you now understand in your essence. Absolute yielding creates absolute strength. Not the strength of compulsion or dominance, but the infinite strength of permitting universal forces to work through you unimpeded. This is not the yielding of defeat, but the yielding of the current to its course, the yielding of the kernel to its blooming, the yielding of the cosmos to its own unfolding. You have discovered that realization surges not from your strain, but from your essence, the radiant presence that naturally emerges when all striving ceases. This presence requires no enhancement, no improvement, no technique. It simply is. And in its essence lies all strength. Your journey has transformed not just your ability to materialize aspirations, but your fundamental relationship with existence itself. Where once you saw yourself as a separate entity struggling against life's currents, you now recognize yourself as the awareness in which all currents surge. This shift from motion to being marks the threshold of mastery. Yet know that this trail of yielding never ends. It spirals ever deeper, revealing ever subtler layers of bond to release. Each yielding opens into greater freedom. Each releasing reveals new dimensions of possibility. The engagement continues to deepen, for there is always more to free. As you carry these teachings forward, remember, yielding is both your engagement and your nature, both your trail and your destination. In the sacred realm of complete releasing, you have uncovered the secret that transforms ordinary existence into magical collaboration with universal forces. You need do nothing more than remember the truth. Yielding shapes destiny. You've heard the summons not from me, but from the deeper intelligence moving through these phrases. If you're willing, drop into the comments with this simple phrase, "I release." That alone begins the unfolding. And if you feel resonance, subscribe not to follow, but to harmonize. This is a field of frequency, and your presence changes everything. If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.